Have you ever suffered from rejection? That dreadful moment when someone you love throws you off or completely writes off you? Like a soul punch, really. But what if I told you that your story does not end in rejection by someone? What if, indeed, it heralds the beginning of something better? Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers in history, provides some timeless advice to assist you to see rejection differently. Keep vigilant, as this might forever change your view of relationships and love. Click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up before we start if you want more strong insights like these. And trust me, you will want to watch right till the very end, as these archaic concepts might completely transform your perspective on relationships. Therefore, let us begin. Chapter 1. The Pain of Rejection. Have you ever had a great pain in your chest after rejection? Or ignoring by someone you really love? You remember it usually as if it were yesterday. That delicate moment when you open your heart and discover either silence or, worse, indifference. It's terrible. Maybe you have gone back over those events in your mind for hours, days, or even weeks, thinking, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I sufficient? If you back up to that person, the one you couldn't stop thinking about, you remember every detail. You remember the books you sent that never opened and the way you waited for a reply never to come. You remember thinking, maybe if I just did this or said that, things would have been different. But let me tell you something powerful. Marcus Aurelius, the renowned Stoic philosopher, has counsel that could forever change your view of these moments of rejection. Let us first make this personal for a time before we go deeper. Think about it once more now. It has been how long since they turned away? For the amount of time have you been hanging to that feeling, weight on your shoulders, wondering why things did not go as expected? Like everyone else, I have gone there. This is why we should talk about what Marcus Aurelius said, since once you perceive rejection through his lens, it loses its value. Actually, it could simply let you free. Marcus believed that, like every other outside event, rejection was beyond our influence. The worst of all is that your perspective of yourself should not be molded by the opinions of others, whether they like you, dismiss you, or absolutely reject you. Spend some time actually allowing everything to sink in. Their perspective of you cannot determine your worth. Still, we sometimes give them that power. Think about it. How often have you allowed the rejection of someone determine your own emotions about yourself? You have internalized that rejection and convinced yourself you are inadequate how many times? Now wondering if you will ever get over it, or worse, whether you will ever find someone who will love you back the way you want to be loved? Marcus then probes us directly. Why? When we ought to be loving ourselves more, do we appreciate the opinion of another person so highly? That is very significant. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than we own, he said famously. Why do we so value what others believe, when we should be the ones defining our worth? Here's a challenge for you. What if right now you decide to stop allowing the rejection of that person influence your story? Imagine if you turned around and started viewing rejection as a teaching tool, instead of a judgment, therefore diminishing your worth. Their perspective isn't your truth? Your story is far from over. Rejection is just a road trip instead of a dead end. Given this, let me ask you once more. Are you really going to let the point of view of others define your own? Alternatively, will you go beyond it and use their rejection to become the ultimate instrument for empowerment? Chapter 2. A new perspective on rejection. Let's dig a little bit further. Think back to the last time someone you were genuinely in turned away. You remember the knot in your stomach? That moment when you found they were not feeling the same. Perhaps they just drifted away without saying, almost like a slow-motion disaster you cannot avoid. What did I do wrong? You ask yourself again and again. Was my presentation not quite fascinating? Did my words put off anyone? Stop for a minute or two. You should completely relate with this feeling. Is this accurate? Perhaps right now you are going through it. Maybe you are reviewing those conversations, or thinking about the books you sent without reply. Maybe you still think they will come back, because leaving would help them to see they made a mistake. Tough, not least of which is here we flip the script around, however. Imagine for a moment that rather than about you, this rejection, this heartache is truly about them. Sounds crazy indeed, but pay close attention to me. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius reminds us that occurrences like rejection are external, that is, beyond of our control. If their decision to reject or ignore you has nothing to do with your value, worth, or lovability, our reaction to them defines our degree of control. Someone rejecting you is deciding based on their own feelings, beliefs, and circumstance. It hardly precisely captures your character or what you provide. Their emotional stance was maybe off target. Maybe they were not ready for the kind of connection you offered. Alternatively, their priorities could not have matched yours. And now, what would you say? Their world, not yours, is what they know. Why then do we berate one another for turning away? Why do we pick it up and suddenly start to feel inadequate? Imagine Marcus Aurelius standing next to you and saying, "This isn't about you. It's about their perspective, their life story. You cannot control what another person chooses or feels. Still, your choice of perception of that rejection will define your impact." Suppose for the moment you were really in love with someone. You imagined a future together and felt things were going well. But then they ghosted you or said they were not interested. Your first reaction is clearly agitated, maybe even humiliated. Reviewing what you said and did, you might find yourself wondering if you could have done anything different while sleeping. There's a radical concept. Though, what if you asked another question instead of criticizing yourself? Instead of asking, "What did I do wrong? What can I learn from this? In what ways may this encounter support my development?" Think of rejection as life's mirror. It reflects not your life, but their one. This is the time when you have to choose whether to view it as an opportunity for growth or fall into self-doubt. Marcus Aurelius believed we could confront our friend instead of our opponent. The impediment to action advances action, he stated very memorably. What stands in the way turns becomes the path. Said another way, what if rejection rather than your stumbling block was your stepping stone? Someone who rejects you might not value your contributions. Still, that suggests it is not missing. Maybe their rejection is just a means of direction, that of something more in keeping with your values, that which you are developing to be. Recall this the next time you face rejection. It is the start of a new chapter in which you could become smarter, more resilient, and more personally connected to yourself. Your trip is not nearing to a conclusion. You see, life is a dance in which rejection rules. It points not to your being undeserving of love. Actually, it might be pointing you in the path of a relationship, much more fulfilling, where you won't have to question your worth as the right person. We'll see it right away. Let me therefore ask you this: will you let rejection define you? Alternatively, would you see it as an opportunity for growth rather than a personal failure, thereby changing your perspective on relationships and love? Chapter 3. Turning rejection into power. See yourself just having been turned down. It hurts, not least of which is your heart appears to be in 1,000 parts. Maybe you put yourself out there, opened your heart, and all you got back was silence or a soft but firm no thanks. But supposing I told you that this horrible incident may be the same thing pushing you into new heights? What if rejection was more than just a setback, rather a setup for a strong comeback? Think about a time you came across a significant barrier or rejection. Maybe it was the perfect job you missed, or maybe someone you thought of as the one. Think back on how dismal it felt, how as if the earth was ready to fall apart. Let's now reconstruct the occurrence using the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher skilled at turning obstacles into potential. This rejection isn't the end. This is an opportunity for you to develop and strengthen yourself. It is not just about the rejection itself, but also about your reaction to it. Marcus Aurelius often said, "The impediment to action advances action. What gets in front forms the path." Imagine yourself in a love story. The rejection you are facing is only one chapter in a far more long narrative. It's like the protagonist in a movie, overcoming challenge coming out, stronger and wiser. What if you tackled this chapter thinking like the hero, who sees obstacles as stepping stones? Remember a time when you felt close to someone and then had them turn away? It hurt, right? You could have spent evenings awake, thinking about what you might have done differently. But consider this. See this rejection as a redirection, rather than as a personal failing. Perhaps this person was not supposed to be included into your narrative. Perhaps the cosmos is pointing you towards someone who will value you even more. Marcus Aurelius claimed that every difficulty presents a chance for growth. Hence, think about this time of rejection and ask yourself, how might I profit from this? Based on this interaction, what may I learn? It's about shifting your perspective from viewing rejection as an end to seeing it as a beginning, an opportunity to refine yourself and your attitude to love. Imagine, for example, if someone you thought would be your soulmate turned you down. Think about what this incident could teach you instead of wallowing over the harm. Maybe it's about improving your own communication style, comprehending your own needs better, or just building more resilience. These insights can help you in upcoming relationships and strengthen you as well as increase your confidence. Remember that every great love story calls for challenges. One of such challenges is rejection. The trick is to greet it, develop from it, and let it propel you toward a better, more fulfilled future. When you next go through rejection, use that energy into personal growth and self-awareness. Apply it to inspire positive changes in your life. Therefore, let me ask you, how will you turn this rejection into a potent instrument for your own growth? Will you use it as a stepping stone to becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient, or will it define you? Accept the challenge and let it act as the motor driving you toward even more objectives. Chapter 4. The Power of Indifference. Imagine a time when you were really devoted to someone and gave your all in the relationship, only to be met with indifference or, worse, complete lack of response. Indeed, it is a tough pill to swallow, the calm treatment and the ignored signals. Cause one to feel invisible and as if all their efforts and feelings are under discount. But here's a Marcus Aurelius concept that could change your attitude to this kind of emotional upheaval totally. Imagine yourself seated with Marcus Aurelius. He gently counsels you that the answer to overcoming apathy and rejection is to learn indifference to things you cannot influence. This suggests you stop letting other people define your emotional condition. It does not mean you stop loving or become cold-blooded. Allow me to enter this. You have most likely been upset waiting for a text on the reason. Someone has suddenly disappeared or departed in the dark, never to come. 1 minute you're thrilled. Then, on an emotional roller coaster, you're depressed. But what if I told you you could stay, calm and consistent apart from the actions of others? Marcus Aurelius stressed in his meditations, especially our need to focus on what is and accept what is not within our reach. Consider that for a moment. Our interpretation of events that bothers us is more important than the facts themselves. People's conduct is beyond your control, whether or not they respond to you. Your reaction to their behavior is within your power. Imagine if someone's indifference were hurting you. It hurts. It's easy to let it overwhelm you. You might start to question yourself and wonder if you did anything wrong, or whether you merit their attention. Marcus Aurelius would advise, nevertheless, to shift your focus. Work on emotional resilience instead of having their indifference dictate your worth. This story should assist to illustrate this. Imagine you are in a relationship or even just starting to know someone and they feel far away right now. You start to wonder what damaged and rejected you missed. Imagine now you step back and think, this is their choice, not a reflection of me. Instead of letting their actions significantly affect you by means of practicing indifference, you may come to understand that their conduct is beyond your control and make the decision to focus on your own well-being rather than announcing you not to care. It is about not letting their decisions define your mental state, usually reflecting their own issues, priorities, or circumstances. Indifference is a mirror of someone else. That does not mean you are less deserving of respect or affection. Their behavior more than reflects on you says about them. Why then should you let it determine your value or perception of yourself? Treat your love story like a novel. This man's indifference is just one chapter. It is not the complete novel. Your writing of the next chapters will benefit from resilience and self-love. Stress your own feelings, personal growth, and road ahead what you can change. How then should one implement this? Remember that even if you come across indifference, you have power over your own emotions. Let not the conduct of others define your emotional state. Instead, choose to be constant, certain, and laser-focused on your own journey. Remember that their behavior reflects their own life. It is not a reflection of your worth. Ask me this: how will you respond going forward to indifference? Will you follow Marcus Aurelius' suggestion and maintain your emotional stability, or will it cause you to lose confidence? Practice indifference to things you cannot influence. Then observe how it affects your emotional strength and self-worth. Chapter 5. Focusing on self-mastery. Have you ever felt as if you are only a passenger in your own life, reacting instead of controlling events? You can be longing for someone's approval, be actively trying to make someone like you, or let a rejection undermine your confidence. It's exhausting, isn't it? But imagine I told you there was a way. You could regain control and start running your own life. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, offers a timeless lesson on self-mastery that will assist you to turn your entire perspective around. Imagine yourself in the middle of a trying situation, a rejection, a grief, maybe just a bad day. You back off and tell yourself that rather than allowing it to overpower you, you control your reaction. Marcus Aurelius believed that one being self-mastering determines whether or not one has a fulfilled life. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he said. Knowing this will enable you to find strength. Let us explore this concept using a personal story. Think back to a time in your relationship when you were highly dedicated. Maybe nothing turned out as intended. Perhaps you're running from rejection or disappointment. It hurt, then not at all. You could have found yourself whirling, fixating on every minute detail and letting it undermine your self-esteem. The turning point, however, is what if you started to control your own emotions, instead of letting those outside events shape your mental state? Marcus Aurelius tells us that stressing our own ideas and emotions is what defines actual power. This means not allowing the opinions or actions of others dictate our own feeling about ourselves. Think about yourself navigating the aftermath from a rejection. While suffering is unavoidable, self-mastery is very useful here. Ground yourself rather than allow that rejection define your worth. Ask yourself, how can I react to this in a way that fits my goals and values? Think of self-mastery as a talent you can develop. Learning to play an instrument or a sport calls for practice and patience. Much as everything else, you start by seeing your reactions, that is, by owning your emotions without letting them rule you. Then, you work on answering in a way that captures your inner power and self-respect. When faced with a setback or rejection, breathe deeply and consider, what can I control in this situation? Look more at your actions and response than at the outside happenings. If you feel rejected, for example, you may choose to channel that energy into enhancing your present relationships. Choose new interests or personal development. Imagine a love story in which the heroine sees growth, opportunities in every obstacle, even if she is repeatedly rejected. Instead of discouraging themselves, they use every occasion to become strong, focus their goals, and better know themselves. This type gets more confident and comfortable, as they have regulated their own intelligence and emotions. They are not depending on outside validation. Imagine right now your own story. How often does your emotional state change with outside events? How often do you find yourself acting impulsively or disheartened by mistakes? Emphasizing self-mastery enables you to get back in line. You start to build from within resilience and strengthen your own emotional terrain. How then will you manage your own problems going forward? Will outside events define you, or will you grow to master yourself and control your own emotions? Learn from Marcus Aurelius and get hold of your ideas and feelings. Emphasizing self-mastery can assist you to become more confident, strong, and able to gracefully and forcefully handle the ups and downs of life. Chapter 6. Letting go of bitterness. Imagine this. You have been much hurt by someone you really loved. Maybe it was a simple feeling of undervaluation, a betrayal, or a nasty split. You are swallowing resentment and anger, which is twisting your relationship memories into a tangle of negative feelings. Every time you think of the person, a tsunami of anger and sadness comes over you. Still, supposing there was a way to find peace and let that animosity fade? On this, the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius offers some rather insightful advice. Maintaining animosity, he considered, just damages us, not the person we're angry with. Bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. He said, let's look at how this knowledge could help you to heal and alter your emotional environment. Think about a time someone abused you. Perhaps they broke your heart or violated your trust. You might find yourself revisiting the incidents, harboring animosity toward them, and maybe letting this bitterness color your daily life. Logic. Someone you know hurting you appears personal, and the impact can remain. Now let us reinterpret this from Marcus Aurelius's perspective. Bitterness ties you to the past and inhibits you from moving on, therefore dragging you to pain. Imagine yourself sat with him and he says, you are carrying around a heavy burden that only affects you. It's like holding to a grudge weighing only on you. Here's a very effective way to understand things. Consider yourself the main character in a story. The bitterness you are holding to is the thick fog hiding the next chapters of your life. The relationship that caused you sorrow is just one chapter. Should you enable this fog to linger, it will obscure the potential and beauty of your future. Imagine then releasing this intensity of bitterness. It is releasing the grip the pain has on you without forgetting what happened or defending the behavior. This allows you to escape the never-ending cycle of fury and resentment. You take back control over your own emotional well-being instead of let the past define the present. Think about it. Holding on to resentment lets someone else influence your emotional state. It's like empowering someone with the power to affect your happiness well, beyond their leaving your life. Marcus Aurelius tells us, nevertheless, that our reactions to other people are under our power. Imagine this. Could the energy used in bitterness be transformed into something worthwhile? Perhaps you might focus on your personal growth. Pursue new hobbies or deepen ties to those who really value you. By letting anger go, you release yourself for growth and healing. You create room for inspiring new happenings to enter your life. Imagine a love story in which the protagonist chooses to let go of their grudges in face of betrayal. Emphasizing their own root, they focus on repairing and at last find a better and more fulfilled relationship. The story is about carrying on, but also about converting hardship into personal strength and knowledge. How, therefore, will you deal with your own resentment? Will you let go and restore your emotional freedom, or will you allow it to bring you down? Following Marcus Aurelius's counsel and letting go of resentment will enable you to heal and open you to a future rich with opportunities and peace. Chapter 7. Embracing Impermanence. First of all, have you ever dreamed of a beautiful moment staying always? On the other hand, have you ever been in terrible pain and longed it would never stop? Love, happiness, or heartbreak? We often find ourselves clinging to the past or fearing the future. But what if I told you that your life and relationships may be transformed by appreciating the impermanence of everything, the fleeting aspect of both pleasure and suffering? Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic philosopher, often commenting about impermanence as a fundamental truth of life. Accepting the fleeting nature of all things, relationships, emotions, even life itself, could assist us to achieve peace. Everything is temporary, both the memory of the person who lived and the memory of the person who died, he said. Let's look at how this knowledge might affect our perspective on love, relationships, and the inevitable changes in our lives. Think back to a time in your very emotional relationship, maybe your first love. Recall how robust everything seemed. Seeing them set your heart ablaze. The pleasure of spending time with one another, and even the pain of the first argument. At that time, such emotions would have appeared to remain constantly in idleness or gloom. Like everything else, yet even the most intense emotions fade or change at last. Imagine now you are living this love story and Marcus Aurelius informs you, in the back of your mind, this too shall pass. It is a grounding thought, isn't it? Though temporary, the pleasure you get in love is priceless. The same is true for the sadness, the loss, or the challenges, however. They are all fleeting, so you learn to see your events from another perspective. Imagine this: if you grasp onto a relationship or a person too tightly, believing you may lose them, you start to strangle the natural flow of things. Accepting that everything is temporary nonetheless encourages you to cherish the moments for what they are: beautiful, transitory occurrences that define you. You start to be more present, more appreciative, and more open to the changes of life. How often have you let your fear of losing someone to rule your love for someone? We set ourselves for disappointment when we adhere to the conviction that something should last eternally. Marcus Aurelius would counsel us, nevertheless, that by embracing impermanence, we may love more completely without fear, knowing that every moment is a gift and that when it goes, we move on knowing that nothing lasts forever, and that is okay. Here is a first-hand story illustrating this. Think of yourself in a relationship and start to sense changes in things. Maybe life circumstances are driving you in different directions, or the bond is weaker than it previously was. You remind yourself of Marcus Aurelius's wisdom instead of resisting this metamorphosis and hanging to what used to be. You let yourself to flow organically over the years. Accepting the impermanence of this relationship enables you to abandon the need for things to stay the same and find comfort in the knowledge that change is inescapable. Think of your love journey like a river continuously changing course. The water you handle now is not the same water you will handle tomorrow. That is what, however, makes it beautiful, that it is continuously moving and changing. Accepting impermanence enables you to enjoy every moment for what it is, free from worry for what is ahead or regret of what has passed. How thus can you apply this to your everyday life and relationships? Will you hold to the past in search of something meant to change? Alternatively, would you accept the impermanence of life and allow yourself fully appreciate every moment, knowing that it too will vanish? Remember that life is valued because of its fleeting nature. Welcome impermanence, then find that you will be more anchored, more present, and more at peace with whatever comes up. Conclusion. So, let someone's disrespect of you or turn-off conduct shatter you. Back off, inhale, and remember Marcus Aurelius' eternal advice. Rejection speaks more to your impression than it does to your worth. And you have already won when you see it as a chance for personal growth. Remember to mark this video as liked and subscribe to the channel should this video speak to you. We are able to provide you more content thanks in great part to your support. See the whole movie. These concepts will really alter your perspective on rejection. Having said that, thanks for watching.